Resident Evil has enjoyed a long history of survival horror over many, many video game years. Starting with its humble beginnings as a mansion resource simulator, where zombies try to give you a smooch at every turn, later iterations that would redefine what an action horror game could be, and perspective changes that would keep the franchise feeling terrifyingly fresh. Capcom would famously undertake the remake option to bring its older titles for a modern audience, and they've done an amazing job so far in their re-iterations. Yet while every numbered Resident Evil game has had their spotlight in their past and present forms, there's still one game that many fans think fondly of, but has yet to fall under the radar of a potential remake, and that is Resident Evil Code Veronica. A mainline Resident Evil game that wasn't a numbered one actually, but beloved by a lot of old-timey fans, oh my back. It was a worthy sequel to the first 3 PlayStation games for bringing the terror to a then higher-end console generation. Gone were the pre-rendered background models in favor of real-time environments that made the world feel more unified and terrifying, a story that continued for the characters of Claire and Chris Redfield, classic claustrophobic survival horror that left players anxious at every turn, and best of all, the always entertaining, absolutely terribly hilarious, cheesy voice acting.
How dare you interfere with my operation?
What are you talking about?
A tried and true Resident Evil game for better or worse, depending on how much you wanted the series to evolve or maintain its core elements, but Code Veronica left a great impression on the franchise that's even gotten fans wanting a remake. For I, a weird-looking bento, who has never gotten the chance to experience Code Veronica firsthand, and only looked at my big brother play the game while I watched with prepubescent fear, it was high time I finally experienced why this particular Resident Evil game is highly regarded. So without further ado, here's an abridged playthrough review of Resident Evil Code Veronica.
Wow, what a mansion!
Upon starting the game, I was reminded how very action-packed the classic series has always tried to be, even though they're technically survival horror games through and through. Starting off with Claire watching too many early 90s action films and actually making it work somehow. Since the destruction of Raccoon City, she's on a mission to find her brother Chris, who is involved with the eradication of the Umbrella Corporation. Unfortunately, she did not watch the proper John Woo film to learn how to escape, and she's taken as a prisoner. Before anything can be done to her though, her situation turns out to be much worse. After an extremely delayed introductory jump scare... How did you survive Raccoon City? It turns out the island has lost control, and Claire is free to leave. One of the first things I noticed was just how much better looking this series has become since the previous 3 games. While I remember RE4 also having a big jump in graphics for its generation, seeing the difference between Nemesis and Code Veronica was massive, with its better looking character and environmental models. Also impressive that Claire can actually express emotions this time around. After taking control, I was immediately reminded that this is classical Resident Evil with its tank controls. No. Thankfully, as someone who managed to master it due to some on and off playtime with the first 3 games, the first remake, and Silent Hill, I was completely well adjusted and happy that they retained the 180-degree turn from RE3. After being reminded that ink ribbons were my only true friends in the older series, I was introduced to the first zombie of the game. Dang bro, you need to change up your skincare routine. Of course, the zombies don't look impressive today, but again, it's the jump from the previous generation that makes it graphically impressive. It's easier to see details in the models, and they even have their jaws dropped on occasion to make them look more shambly. The only thing that kinda sucks is that the game has to use pre-rendered cutscenes for some of the more action-heavy pieces, rather than the in-game rigging and movement. Still, the action and horror pace is at least establishing the tone of Code Veronica. As per usual in most RE and a couple horror games, you're first taught the idea of survival by running and dodging the zombies. Check out these gamer skills! Oh shit. Next, I finally got Claire her gun, but not before being introduced to the greatest Resident Evil protagonist of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you...
Steve!
I don't want you following me, lady.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm trying to hold in my laughter here. I know that Ari has had some pretty campy and hilariously terrible voice acting, but I really didn't think I'd hear someone as angsty as Steve.
I was a prisoner on this island. And I'm guessing you're not from Umbrella either.
He kinda sounds like Sonic, but slightly pitched up and full of post-adolescent hormones with a slight injection of chunibyo. Like, seriously, his art model has his hair covering his eye too. From this point, it was the classical RE formula that I was familiar with. Going through the map, searching for items and clues to the next objective, and sometimes doing a complete 180 because I was not mentally prepared for what was in the room. Okay, bye! It feels like the RE formula that I know and love. It's definitely outdated for those who may not like the backtracking method, driving a tank, and having to change guns and manually reload in the inventory menu, but the gameplay loop felt very satisfactory in scratching my survival horror itch. I even admittedly got jump scared a bit with the game doing their version of the zombie dog jump scare from the first.
Nope.
Very atmospheric for my liking, and I was more than compelled to continue playing. The first major puzzle was interesting for me in that it involved you dealing with a metal detector that prevented progression if you didn't deposit all of your metallic equipment. Very anxiety-inducing when you have to surrender your only means of defense. You with me on this, James? Also new for the series is that Claire gets to have a weapon that she can dual wield to take out 2 enemies at once. Though not that major in terms of gameplay, I found it to be useful, especially where there were enemies that I couldn't safely run past and needed to mow them down. That's also where I learned that explosive barrels exist and that they're not colored red. Well, straight to the literal danger zone, I guess. After going through the back and forth of 3D copying and printing on undetectable metal, and a cutscene showcasing Steve's insecurity,
You'll just end up disappointed if you rely on others. Believe me, I know.
What was that all about?
it was time for the palace section and training facility. Oh, and it was also a reminder from the game that you should not try to fill your inventory, otherwise you're gonna have a bad time. A cool detail that I came across is that the zombies can actually be pushed over the ledge when you shove them after they grab you. A nice detail that caught me by surprise, and how much more immersive the devs tried to make the environment feel. At the entrance to the training facility, the game also reminded me how much knifing was a staple of the series, and that I can actually conserve ammo if used properly. It was also interesting to see that Claire's hurt box can shift when knifing, narrowly avoiding the attacks of some of the doggos.
Nope.
After seeing Claire seeing a man who is now seeing blood all over a glass window, Claire starring in her own action film, reliving the original RE2 thanks to the bolt gun, and typing on a computer which apparently has the same operating system as the one that they use at the Raccoon City Police Department, it was off to the antique room where a film was being shown. What is this, Yosuga no Sora? Grabbing the steering wheel and the golden lugers afterwards, apparently turn on the heating unit and immediately put Claire into caution. See, this is why you should have kept your shorty shorts, Claire. Attempting to leave the palace, Steve suddenly became the damsel in distress.
Yeah! Help me!
I love how it sounds like he's in the same room, when we all know that he's back in the other room trying to get the golden lugers. Knowing that he didn't play RE1 and forgot to put the guns back on the frame, it was time to use our brain to help Steve. The puzzle mechanic was pretty simple, where all you really need to do is be aware of the number of items in the room, and you're able to help Steve rather quickly.
That was too close. But I found something, thanks to you.
Sure, Steve. Sure. Having to say goodbye to Steve again for the sake of gameplay, it was now time to meet one of the game's main villains, one Mr.
Alfred Ashford, commander of this base.
Oh? You must be one of Umbrella's lower level officers if you're in command of a backwater base like this one.
How dare you!
Bro, it's a nice gun, don't hit it.
Have it your way then. You're just a rat in a cage anyway.
Yeah, he's a very fun and interesting character. After leaving the palace and summoning a submarine elevator with the steering wheel, also I just realized that this is what Crow Country was referencing. Claire made her way to the underground hangar, where her final objective can be seen in plain view. Also, f*** you, bats. One UFO-style crane game later, man, I wish the ones in Akiba were this easy, and obtaining the necessary keycard to advance into the training facility, it was time to head back again. Upon entering, I was introduced to the very prepubescent form of the Shy Halud. Ah yes, I've seen how Lee Nagai moves. I should be fine!
Nope.
Making it through, Alfred showed his butt again, and I swear this man is really bad at shooting. Next, I was introduced to one of the new common enemies of the game, the Bandersnatch, who have got to be one of the most annoying BOW types to deal with. They can attack you from afar with stupidly good accuracy, and they have so much health that it'll take multiple magazines of your gun to take them down. They're also scarier since they can easily traverse different level sections with their stretchy arms. Whoa there, Mr. Fantastic. I guess Steve can be pretty impressive.
Don't worry, Claire. Your knight in shining armor is here.
And it's gone. After some conversation, it was time to shift gears and actually play as Steve himself. Functionally, he's really not that different from playing Claire, and I really didn't notice anything too different about him. A bit of a fun go ahead and shoot everything section, and a nice break from the usual gameplay loop. After a bit more pew-pewing, Steve runs into the one zombie on the island that he himself cannot shoot.
What's wrong, Steve? Shoot him!
It is a bit of a sad scene actually, and a tragic backstory for Steve. While we leave him to collect himself for now, Claire needed to shoulder on. On the way back to the palace, the Bandersnatch have been placed on the map, and they are terrifyingly strong to the point that outrunning them proved to be just too difficult. So, the solution was an explosive one.
Kaboom!
With the help of the Golden Lugers, I was able to access the final door at the palace, and it was time to visit the hidden mansion, but not before another jump scare. Alright, I got the explosive bolts ready. Oh Jesus, that hurts. Finally making it to the hidden mansion and dealing with these goddamn bats, I freaking hate them. I had essentially made it across the entire map, and all that was left to do was to find where the items needed to be used, which in turn helped lead Claire and Steve to getting off this island. This was definitely one of the longer parts of the game, since it basically felt like a mix of item utilization, puzzle solving, and resource management to make it to the end. While I didn't mind it so much since I was used to the older gameplay, the back and forth does start to feel tedious. More often, it was an issue of trying to remember what location I had to go back to, trying to find a key item or make use of one that made the traversing take so long. But I did enjoy the puzzle-solving riddles most of all, notably the room with the paintings, and using logic to determine the Ashford lineage. They're fun, and even if they are on the older side, I enjoyed them nonetheless. The last bit of story revelation is that Alfred's sister Alexia is not actually there, but was in fact Alfred this whole time.
What? No!
Or was it? After finally obtaining all the key items to leave the island, it was time for the classical RE escape, where we get to have a timed self-destruct sequence while trying to make it to the escape vehicle. But also in true RE fashion, there's one more standoff that you have to do, and it was Mr. Tyrant who has come to make sure that Claire doesn't leave. The corridor fight was pretty one-dimensional in that you basically have to keep shooting until he goes down. But you do have to use your harder hitting weapons because the handgun won't cut it. Unless there's some cool tech that I'm unaware of, you can't really run past him otherwise, and he'll slam you into the ground if you try. But with Mr. TO7 A-hole out of the way, thanks to a fistful of explosives, it was time to make our escape. Come on, Steve, take us out of here. Wait, you can fly a plane? But of course, we're not out of the woods yet. While mid-flight, there was one more square off with the big grey tyrant himself. But I have to admit, out of all the fights I have seen in a Resident Evil game, the tyrant in the cargo hold has got to be the most bullshit. The level is so cramped, you barely have any room to maneuver, and you're always in striking distance from him. If you get knocked down and Claire isn't in the right position to run, the man can stunlock you with his attacks until you're dead. Also, as an added kick to the jewels, if you're at the back of the open plane and the tyrant punches you, you will be sent flying. Honestly, I think this is the most times I've ever had to restart a boss fight because of how easy it is for Claire to go down. Anyway, after managing to blast him with enough grenade rounds, I was able to send him flying out the cargo hold. Bye, have a beautiful time. Ah, what a great way to end the game. No, not really, because Alfred knows how to fly a plane, and he's somehow redirecting your ass to Antarctica. Oh my god, what is with this underlying sub-romance? Chris, the bloodline!
Complete global saturation.
With a very safe and approachable landing sequence, Claire and Steve find themselves on the Antarctic base. fuck? And Steve just rushes ahead and leaves Claire again. Now, with a new location to deal with, Claire has to search for a way off the frozen base. Just like in the previous section, you'll again have to look for items and clues to help you escape, and there was only really 2 new enemy types that I had to deal with, which were the Moths and the Black Widows. They're both a bit scary since they can poison you, so I either had to put them down fast or quickly run past them. For the Moths, I mostly did the running until the game decided to put Claire in a corner and stunlock her, so I ended up just having to shoot all of them out of frustration. As for the spiders, I just needed to end their existence. After finding one item that leads to another, that leads here, that leads over there, then leads to another one, we were about to make our exit. Again?
Steve, watch out!
You see what happens when all you think about is the bloodline? Ugh, Leon really is the perfect one. With the gas mask equipped and finding the valve solution, which will help stop the poison gas, there was just one more cutscene with Ass Furred before moving on. Oh, Steve, you're so extra. But at least your knowledge of being able to pilot airplanes and obscure construction vehicles is your greatest asset. Hell, even Ashley would be jealous. And now for a very basic boss fight where you simply stand and shoot the not so subtle weak spot, everyone please welcome Nosferatu! Wow, that is a slap even Rick James would be proud of. He's pretty much like every classic style survival horror boss fight where you run around and shoot while avoiding his attacks, which I only really saw as a short range melee and a poison mist. Wasn't all that hard for me, but I did have a slight oh no moment where I was poisoned and without any blue herbs. Oh, just gotta put it down fast then. And thus our journey is over, and what in God's name is this hentai tentacle trying to do? Also, it turns out Alexia was an experiment this entire time, and still alive, surprising nobody. Now everyone please welcome the Boulder Puncher.
Don't worry, Claire. I'm coming to save you.
So the story shifts to Chris shortly arriving after the island went boom. In search of his sister, kinda funny now that the turns have tables, Chris has to rummage through the island for any traces of Claire. Oh hey Rodrigo, who has never been named in game, how are you doing today? Oh my Lisa Nagaib! Chris pretty much follows the same suit as Claire in terms of gameplay. The interesting part about his section is that it's the island all over again, only this time the pathways are remixed and convoluted because of the debris and rubble from the fallout. The overall approach remained the same, where you have to find the correct progression items to continue the story. But there was one more fun surprise for Chris and the fans.
Long time no see, Chris.
Wesker?
Albert Wesker, having actually survived the events of the first game, shows Chris just how much more of a Chad he is.
You have no idea how much I hate you.
But because of his need for power, Alexia distracts him from killing Chris. In this section, there's a few challenging enemies like the reptilian BOWs who are similar to the first game, and they are both tanky and hit like a truck, so it's a good thing that Claire can share her toys with Chris. He does get his own shotgun at least. But I made the mistake of being stingy with my healing around these guys, because even at caution, they will send you to your last save point. There was also that one creature that Claire accidentally released earlier that is now a boss, gatekeeping a key item. It was alright to fight, but it wasn't really that scary and more just being annoying, because all I really did was shoot it from afar without being electrocuted. Though I did need to test the waters to see how strong it was. And well, it was kind of underwhelming. Having finally obtained all the items to progress, I was able to finish the level by getting the chemicals needed to make the final key. Chris was able to access the hidden hangar, and a magical autopiloting jet was given right to him. Man, those are some strong protag powers. Arriving at Antarctica, it was now up to Chris to finish up the game's final section and preserve the Redfield bloodline. This section was also remixed a bit to make Chris's progression a little different, on top of making use of some items and areas that Claire didn't have access to. Still the same business as usual with the back and forth between the rooms and the items, and I still felt engaged and compelled with the progression. Thankfully, the map feels less convoluted than the second island version, so getting around wasn't so bad. The highlights for me were making use of the items that Claire utilized previously, and the boss fights with the giant Black Widow that looks nothing like a Black Widow. I only died once because man do the stun locks suck in this game. But nothing a shotgun to the face won't solve. Also, of all the scariest things that this game has done so far, nothing is more terrifying than the abdomen of a spider being blown off and the rest of its thorax crawling towards you. Ugh. So far, everything was playing fine up until the 2 annoying roadblocks that extended my game time by like 20 to 30 minutes. The first was the serum that you have to get for Claire after she's poisoned. Now, when Chris actually comes across the serum, apparently I was a pixel off from picking it up. It's this red bag of blood over here. But, for some reason, even though I tried to examine that area, Chris apparently did not know what the heck they were being used for. So in my assumption, I thought the serum was elsewhere. Apparently no. I was off by literally 1 or 2 pixels, and I spent a good 20 minutes trying to think of where else the serum could have been when it was in fact in front of my face. Ugh. The second was the dice puzzle. So normally, when you do the weird Ashford terminal puzzle, you have to put something in after you solve the symbols. At first, I thought maybe it was some type of specimen I had to find elsewhere, but just to be sure, I went back to try the dice block, and apparently it didn't register. So I assumed I had to look for something else. No! I was off by a few pixels and couldn't use the dice. Christ, I was a block of salt. It was just those 2 segments that threw me for a loop, and once I finally figured them out, I was able to make progress. At this point, after giving Claire the serum, you do actually get to control her for just a bit, because she has to go through the backroom laboratory in order to save Steve. After a stroll through a few rooms and probably the weirdest puzzle that can literally squish you to death. Claire needs to put a crystal ball in the middle of a giant squashing machine, and she has to run away from it afterwards. Apparently she can't just stand to the side to put it down, or maybe behind the railing. No, she has to put it directly in the center in harm's way. It really should be her that's called the Claire sandwich, and not Jill. Finally getting the key from the crystal ball, Claire comes in for the rescue to help Steve. But unfortunately, our dual-wielding boy does not get to have a happy ending.
No, wait!
Now, before I talk about this next part, I do need to grief about this boss fight. I don't mind runaway bosses, and I'm sure there are some really specific strats to get away from Monster Steve, or even a speedrun method, but the fact that the game indicates the urgency to run away from him and to get to the gate before it closes is not made fun by the fact that Steve can 2-hit kill you. It just feels like a very gimmicky boss that you have to run away from and use a couple of health items to survive. A bit disappointing, and the feeling of getting away from Monster Steve just didn't really even feel satisfying or scary. But afterwards, we are greeted to one of the saddest scenes in the game.
Steve, you've got to hang in there, okay? My brother's come to save us. We're getting out of here.
You know, despite how ridiculous the characters are in the Resident Evil series, it can get a bit sad when you see them go. And for all the silliness that Steve brought, I will miss the guy. Shortly after, there was one mini showdown with Chris, Wesker, and Alexia, which involved the Ojo-sama transforming into the ultimate being and absolutely beating the shit out of Wesker. Now it was up to Chris to do the job himself and beat Alexia. Well, she can't be that bad, right? Oh, Jesus. It's a pretty simple boss fight otherwise, just pump her full of whatever weapons you have and avoid her fire and one-shot attacks. After she's put down and using the knife to two-tap her, she still appears to be alive the moment you go into another room. With one more puzzle to solve to get the self-destruct key, it was time to pick up Claire and head home. But of course, again, it wouldn't be a Resident Evil game without the final boss confrontation, and it's up to Chris and Claire to beat her. Also, one weird complaint, why is there a section where Claire can just die if you don't shoot Alexia fast enough? I was actually confused as to who I had to control in this space and time, but upon realizing too late that I was actually playing Chris, Claire was dead. Okay, now I know. There we go. Allowing Claire to escape, it was up to Chris to finish off Alexia once and for all in what has to be the most annoying final boss fight I have ever seen in a Resident Evil game so far. Her attacks include long-range tendrils that can reach, a poison breath that will annoy you if you didn't bring blue herbs, But worst of all, she has an ungodly amount of tiny ads that will animation lock you if you don't deal with them. It was so bad that I couldn't even kill them because Chris literally could not move. Thankfully, I found the one safe spot that had a good viewing angle of everything, and I was able to unload on the ads, as well as Alexia with the revolver. Eventually, I got her down to the second phase, and in classic RE fashion, you're given a rocket launcher to finish her off.
And it's a good thing it has infinite ammo, cause you're gonna need it.
Nope. 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 Yes!
After managing to land the shot and blow her up for good, Chris, Claire, and not Steve make their escape. I heard that in the Code Veronica X version, you actually get to fight Wesker before it ends, which honestly seems like a better extended ending than him not appearing at all. With Chris ensuring the safety of his bloodline, he was now fully determined to make sure that Umbrella is finished. And thus, we're finally done with Code Veronica.
What are you buying?
So, Code Veronica was fun. For the most part. The old school survival horror in me enjoyed its core gameplay elements with the resource management, limited inventory space, claustrophobic encounters with the zombies, and puzzle solving, which held up for my taste. A bit old in design, yes, but still quite enjoyable. I really think it was the backtracking and the map design that felt a bit tedious though. I'm usually okay with the back and forths being a thing for survival horror, and even other genres like Metroidvanias, where the levels are repurposed into something different to make the gameplay more dynamic. Code Veronica does do that for me, but levels like the island portion with Chris just felt like a maze. Most of all though, it's just some of the jank that made the game a bit frustrating for me. It is an older title of course, so that's kind of the excuse that I'm gonna have to go with. But, barring those criticisms, Code Veronica was still a game worth going through at least once. I think if I did play this back in the Dreamcast days on release, it would have definitely been the best Resident Evil game for me at the time, with all of its updated visuals and traditional RE elements that I am a fan of. Is it worth going through for a modern audience though? Maybe. If you're a fan of the classical Resident Evil formula, or you're a bit of a retro connoisseur, but for everyone else, it's a hard sell. But where most fans are of the opinion that this game needs a remake, I totally agree. I think the atmosphere, plotline, and characters have the potential to be another amazing title for Capcom's remake lineup. Whether that happens or not is up to them of course, but the moment I hear any news of that, I will be super excited. Though for now, in recent news, I'm absolutely happy to see another numbered sequel in the franchise. A fun game overall, and I was super satisfied to finally play it all the way through. But that's gonna do it for today guys, thanks for sticking around. There will be more games to play and more videos coming soon, so please stay tuned if you'd like to see more. But for now, I'll see you all next time.